In this video, I'm going to teach you the basics of JSON. JSON is a plain text way to store or transfer data. People use JSON for APIs, config files, and saving stuff. So in the previous video, we have taken a look at some objects and arrays, and we are going to do something similar. So this is our JavaScript code from the previous video. We are going to keep it here for now. I'm going to close that file, and I'm going to close this web page, and let's click on a new file, and let's call it data.json. Alright, JSON files have the file extension of .json. Alright, and let me collapse this group, and let me zoom in so you can see the code better. And let's do some JSON, everybody. In JSON, you use curly braces to add an object. Alright, so this is an object, and inside of this object we can have some key value pairs. For example, name colon example. Alright, so that's the first name, and you see I have the copilot and it's helping me. And if I want to add a phone number, I can go to the next line and type in phone number. So phone colon, you see it's going to add a number, so just add a number. And I have added some basic data, and you see each one is separated by a comma. So let's add an email here. So email at email.com. And because this is the last one, I'm not going to add a comma. You don't add a comma. And you can add any data type. For example, let's see if this person has a car. For example, has a car colon true. Alright, so that's not how it goes. So has a car, you put inside of two quotations, then we use a colon followed by a true or false value. And you see it's going to show you an error right here because I need to add a comma here, the one before, because this is the last one now. Alright, so we have a basic object here, so we can turn this into an array. So in JavaScript we have learned that square brackets are an array, so we can place this object inside of an array. So to do that, I'm gonna open a square bracket here, and I'm gonna enclose this code inside of that. So you see I have this object inside of this array, and because I have an array now, I can add another person, for example comma, and add two curly braces. Alright, so you see right here I can copy this whole thing and paste it here, and let me change the name to example2 and do something different. So you see we have two items in our array. So I have two items now inside of my array because you see I'm using the square brackets. However, if you use single quotes instead of double quotes, you see we have key and values. So for example, we have the key of name, and we have name example. We have a string for example. However, if we change this to something else, or if I change the key to single quotes, you see this is going to be an error because you always have to have double quotes for the key. Alright, so the key you always have to have double quotes, but the data type can be true, false, or number. You see I can change this you see I have this string here that's enclosing this number. I'm gonna get rid of it, and I'm gonna just make it whole integer. So you see we have an integer here. However, if I add a dash here, it's gonna show you an error. So in this case, if you want to add dashes, you will have to enclose it inside of a string or double quotes. So now we have three data types. We have a string, which is just text. We have an integer, which is just a number. And we have another string for email. And we have a true false boolean here, which is true or false. For example, this person has a car, and this person, let's change it to false. Let's say that this person doesn't have a car. So a common mistake that people make is they avoid adding commas after each one. For example, you see inside of this object, I have the first key and then the value. It always have to have a comma after it because there is another one under it. And spacing doesn't matter. If you add some indentation here, this is still normal. There are no errors. However, we just don't add much indentation, just like that, to keep it more readable. So it's easier to read it instead of placing items like this next to each other, because sometimes the code will be long and it's gonna be more difficult to read than if you stack it right now. So if you keep the code like this, it's better to read, and make sure that you have commas after each key value pair, except the last one. You see, because this is the last one, I did not add a comma here. However, we are inside of an array. I have an array here, and inside of that array I have an object, and I have separated this object by adding a comma there as well. Alright. However, if you have another one, let's say that I want to add another one. So let's say that I want to add another object. So I'll always have to have my comma there and then paste it again. And because this is the last one, I don't need to add a comma here. So many people, they add a comma here, and that's not how it goes. If it's the last item, you avoid the comma, everyone. So this will be example 3, a different number, different email, maybe true or false. And this is basically it, everyone.